Oh crap, what does that look like? Bitcoin is struggling. There are liquidations, extreme ones. There is manipulation going on. There are statements that might still offer a bit of hope. Charts that show a little hope. And many signs that things are looking bad right now. But there is still a glimmer of hope. Hey, welcome to Crypto Owl. I really don't need to sugarcoat anything for you right now, do I? I think none of us need to pretend right now and say, yeah, it'll be fine, November, December. But maybe there's still a glimmer of hope, and I want to show you that. Let's take a look at what's happening right now, and there are some wild things going on. It's crazy what's happening at the moment. Let's dive into it, and I'll explain to you what's going on right now. Let's dive in and take a look at the Bitcoin chart, and as I just mentioned, Bitcoin is struggling. It's struggling right here at my zone, at my registered channel. Yeah, you can see it briefly broke out to the upside as well, but it always depends on how it broke out. So there were a few hype news items here, which is why I like to leave that in. But it really shouldn't break out to the downside. If it does, I usually just draw a new one right away, like I did here. I drew a new one even though it actually hadn't broken out yet. But these are all moments where I say it broke out of the small one, but it was still inside the big one. Yeah, but I like to draw new ones then. That's why, as soon as it clearly breaks out to the downside, a new registration channel is drawn. What does that do for you? It doesn't do anything for you, except that we can now see on the hourly chart that it's already broken out. If I were to draw a new one here now, no, we don't want to see that. Believe me, it would just keep going further down. But here we see another line that I drew, a green line, on the daily chart there. It's fighting right at this line at the moment. That line is already a bit older. It doesn't come from this period. I drew it here at some point, I'm pretty sure. And since then, it's been fighting around this line, around 104,000 or so. That's where it's struggling right now. And what's actually happening there right now? What glimmers of hope are there? The glimmer of hope is what that orange man in America is saying. There was that interview about the topic, or also about crypto and Bitcoin. And some important statements from this interview are quite clear. That his son, or rather, his sons are into crypto. He pardoned CZ and he doesn't even know who CZ actually is. But the demand for CZ's pardon was so great from influential people and also from his children because they're into crypto. And they know exactly that CZ is a very important person in the crypto market. We'll take a look in a moment at just how important he is. In any case, there was this really striking statement and it gives a bit of hope that something is coming. And that was this one. He said, President Trump says, the only thing that matters to me is that we will be number one in the crypto sector. China is getting heavily involved in this area. There are two glimmers of hope here. The first glimmer of hope is that China is bringing money into the market, which increases liquidity and as a result also drives up prices. The second glimmer of hope is that the US will get even more involved and finally announce a Bitcoin reserve. There have been rumors about this and quite a few statements. That by the end of November, a decision should be made regarding a US Bitcoin reserve, or at least some results should be available. We can only hope that this will actually happen, and that maybe in November, by the end of November, depending on what is reported or announced, we might see a turnaround. That would definitely be very nice. Let's take a look at the chart. It doesn't look good at all right now. You have to be honest about that. It's just not looking good at the moment. And for Bitcoin, it was a very strange October. We've already seen that. October is actually the first good month out of the 3 top months of the year. So the 3 good months are basically at the end of the year, although December tends to drop off again towards the end. But at the beginning, it's usually pretty good. Actually, the top months are always November and December, roughly speaking. Then there's usually April when there's still a bit of trading, and then it's sell in May and go away. That's how we usually know it. But the month of November is already looking pretty bad right now. Almost 5% down in November. That's a figure that's still the lowest read at the moment. But November has only just begun. We can be curious to see what else is coming. October, with about minus 4%, was actually the best of the bad months. So of all the red months, it was the best. But overall, it was not a good month. That's just something we have to note at the moment. Yes, and now let's talk about these lows that are happening in the market right now and also where the Trump sons are involved. Namely, we've already talked a lot about the Bitcoin OG and what position does he currently have? Is he currently short? Is he currently long? But lately, he was always short and the markets went down. But now he did something. He opened long positions. Not exactly this Bitcoin OG, but one of these insiders, at least very likely an insider, who has been trading here and has recently made extremely high profits. And it looks like this. There is an insider wallet, as it was called. An insider from Trump's circle with a 100% win rate was just completely liquidated from his long position. After 14 successful transactions and a profit of $33 million, he decided to go all in and lost $45 million in a single trade. And here we have the big topics again. Supposedly, the market makers watched for long enough as insider trading was taking place, and the market makers took their money back. Those were some of the comments on this topic. And the fact that manipulation does indeed happen in this market and that statements from influential people can cause charts to move in a certain direction has now been demonstrated to us by the pardoned CZ. He posted this, so let's take a closer look. Specifically, he posted, first of all, that he bought Asta. We can see that here. He bought and Asta available, this and that amount. Now the question is, did he really buy Asta or did he just show how much Asta is available? Because there are a few people who have said, interesting, because in this screenshot, he didn't actually show a direct purchase. He only showed us that he has that much Asta in his wallet and no USDT. That's all he showed. The whole thing got 11.4 million views and the chart went up afterwards. We can see that here. Here we can see it even better. The chart shot up, that's very clear, and that led to, this post. It comes then here at this point, this is what I just showed you earlier, and then the chart shot up quite noticeably, and then he wrote something underneath. He wrote that here, after the price, so the CZ candle happened, that's this right here. He wrote again, damn, I was hoping to buy some more at those low prices. You can tell he was expressing a bit of regret about missing the chance to buy at a lower price, which is something many traders experience. So that means he was hoping he could still buy at a lower price. And now the big question is, was this screenshot simply just a screenshot like, hey look, this is how much Asta I have in my wallet, and did that lead to the price going up? And then did he calmly sell the Asta? That's possible, dear friends. It's not like, and this is what I didn't understand, why people freaked out right away. He just showed how much Asta was available. And what was also interesting was that it said buy with euro here. That means he showed that he could buy here with euros. So somehow this screenshot was strange from the very beginning. Why would he want to buy with euros? Was it just suggested to him, like euros just happened to show up? Did he make his last transaction in euros? And did he really buy here? Or was it really just his wallet? Look, I have 2 million. Oh yeah, I just bought them. But there's no proof of purchase here. That's what I'm showing. There are market trades here. Yes, there are, but are they his or are they just the market trades? I don't know. In any case, it's a very curious screenshot, but I'm not a Binance user either, so I'm not 100% familiar with it. But can someone who has the Binance app tell me if those are his trades? Or are they just market trades that are happening right now? That's how I see it. It's basically just the order book and not his trades. So that means with his statement, he made the chart pump. By now, the chart is actually even lower than where it started. And in my opinion, he sold the Asta. Now, of course, the big question would be, CZ, why don't you show another screenshot of how much you have available now? Because if I have my Asta, and he definitely had it, why would I keep it on an exchange? Of course, sure, he represents Binance in some way and wants to build trust, but that was clearly manipulation. You just have to call it what it is. Yes, and right now, it's also the case, and this is something I keep criticizing, that on the one hand, the ETF was a positive effect for Bitcoin and also for companies. But let's be honest, way too many people are focusing on it, and that's the issue. If you look at the ETFs, there have only been outflows in the past few days. And if you go further, that means sales, essentially. If you go further and also track the BlackRock wallet, this one here, you'll see, we can refresh it again, but at most, only the number of hours will have changed. No, not even that. Then we see that 3 hours ago, some test transactions were made from Coinbase custody to IBIT. Just a bit, yeah, a few Bitcoin, totally irrelevant here, just for $13. But then the other way around from IBIT to Coinbase Prime, then 300 Bitcoin, 31 million. 31 million out again, 31 million out again, 31 million out again, 25 million out, 31 million out, 31 million out. These are today's sales. All of this will be reflected here again tomorrow, or rather tonight, depending on when it's released. That there are sales again. But what's interesting is yesterday, on the 3rd, November, friends, take a look at this. There were only sales in IBIT, or rather in the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF. No one else traded, neither bought nor sold. So that means active trading is happening in the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, that is, in IBIT. We can see that very, very clearly here. And today we'll see red numbers again. And that's already being reflected in the price. It's already showing up in the price because people are, of course, watching this wallet closely. So on the one hand, it's a curse and a blessing. A curse because everyone is watching this wallet, and no matter what happens, trading is already taking place, even though the numbers will only be released tonight or later this evening after the market closes in the US. But people can see because the blockchain is transparent or pseudo-anonymous, but we know that's the BlackRock wallet from the ETF. And if Bitcoin is leaving that wallet, then people are selling right now. So we go short, the market turns negative. But if it's the other way around, from Coinbase Prime to IBIT, then they're buying, so I can open a long position. Because when the ETF numbers come out this evening, everyone will say, haha, great. But I don't even have to wait for the ETF numbers because I can just look at the wallet. It's both a curse and a blessing. So that's what you can actually pay attention to if you say, yeah, I want to see what's actually going to happen today. You can check in advance, just look at the BlackRock wallet on Arkham, and then you can see what's happening. But there's still a bit of hope left. I could tell you again about all the great offers like 20 USDC at OKEx or this great 60% promotion at Tangum, but by now, you already know all that. In the end, I want to leave you with a glimmer of hope, and that's, of course, the Fed. What? The Federal Reserve? Why should that be a glimmer of hope now? There's actually something really interesting. Right now, the market is lacking liquidity. If we take a look at what's happening on the US exchanges. Let's go up here and take a quick look. The S&P 500, yes, it dropped today at first, but now it's rising again. Or rather, it formed a gap here. But in general, it's trading up here. Yes, but if we look at the complex US market, just go through the US stocks. Not the ones I have listed here, which are all in the red right now. But the S&P 500 is currently in a green phase. So it started off poorly, but is now climbing back up. But in general, as I said, the stocks, it's the same story. They started off poorly. Everything is difficult right now, but this S&P 500, as well as the Nasdaq and others, are currently being driven by the big players in the market. And if the big players weren't there, it wouldn't be nearly as high. The rare earth deal with China, Japan, and possibly everything that's still ahead of us with Venezuela. Unfortunately, you have to keep an eye on the news if you're involved in the crypto market. There's no other way. The whole topic has led to certain companies rising here. For example, Tesla, but also Apple, Nvidia, Meta. Basically, all those who have something to do with rare earths in some way. And all of this is causing the big players to increase in volume, but actually all the other Nasdaq companies underneath them aren't doing so well at the moment. And that's the big problem right now. And in general, the market is somehow lacking liquidity at the moment. The interest rate cuts in the US are only progressing slowly. Yes, they're happening slowly. Many of us assume that we'll see another rate cut in November. But again, only 25 basis points, meaning 0.25%. And many are simply hoping for a faster, larger rate cut so that liquidity returns to the market. So money has to come from somewhere. And then, of course, there's a central bank. It has enough money and can fire up the printer. Theoretically down in the basement and say, we'll send you money, or rather inject money into the market. And that's exactly what happened, friends. No joke. And this right here is a chart. This is the repo chart, and this is the chart that shows us how much liquidity the Federal Reserve is providing to the banks. And take a look here, October 31st. And also today, on November 3rd, money has been provided. You can see that here. So money is being provided again right now. The last time this happened was during the crisis around 2019 and 2020. We can see that here when we look at the full chart. Look here, that was the previous crisis where they were actively trading. And after that, they only ran this repo, this liquidity program on a small scale. You can sometimes see very small numbers here, little spikes, really tiny ones in between. They're not even visible on the chart because they're insignificant. But until 2020, this was actively managed. And here on the 12th, On March 12th, 2020, so much money was provided to cushion the crisis from 2019 a bit more. And after that, the repo program was gradually scaled back. And now it's starting up again, dear friends. We can see that here. That means that money is being provided to the banks in the US. Many would also say this here. Well, printing, I don't know. Oh, come on, just go for it. And that's what's currently going around on the internet. So the banks are very likely printing. And now the big question is, does this somehow help the crypto market? Because if the banks are provided with more liquidity and at the same time interest rates are lowered, that can of course lead to a lot more people investing in Bitcoin and in this case, other assets through the ETF option. It remains exciting at this point. Now, I just don't know, because that's a question you ultimately have to answer. So what is November actually called now? Because as we've seen, Uptober became Rectober. Moonvember is turning into November. No one knows. We have every reason to be very curious. So what will happen now with November or Moonvember? There are still other possibilities. At the moment, there's also a chart going around, I've already shared it with our Telegram group, that shows the market is more hopeful than actually rising. So there's still hope, but nothing else. And the chart looks like this. You can interpret it however you want. There's this theoretical chart that shows how such a cycle unfolds. And right now, many people are saying it's all because of the ETFs. It's been shifted a bit, also due to the slow interest rate cuts in the US. And many say that it's all still to come. We will still experience this 4-year cycle. I actually believe that too. But somehow it's very strange because usually things start picking up in October. But we can only look to the past and hope that it will be the same in the future, or at least could happen. Now, we see this chart here and you can see that November, December, January, February, and March have been marked. April, May, June, July. We can be very curious to see if it turns out that way. I just wanted to show it to you, and then you can interpret for yourselves. Could it happen like this? Will it happen this way? Write it in the comments if you see it the same way in this sense. Those were my opinions on the whole thing. You have to form your own opinion about it, or rather, those were all the details I currently have. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say. Write it in the comments. With that, I want to thank you for watching and see you in the next video.